Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. I know it's been a while since I've jumped on here to update y'all on our move, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that I believe make Northwest Arkansas an amazing place to live, and also the things that have been the biggest adjustment for us in moving here. So I know I've made a lot of videos about, like for us personally, what it was like to move and what the transition was like, and I've been getting so many requests to talk a little bit more about what makes Northwest Arkansas amazing. So that's what this is going to be about. And I want to give a disclaimer before I share anything, and that is I am not like sponsoring, endorsing any particular company or person. I'm not being like paid to say any of this. It's just me, random person that lives in Northwest Arkansas, sharing with all of you what I think makes it great. And also, I know that everyone has a different opinion, and that's great. So this is what I believe makes Arkansas great, and I'm sure that there are things that I'm not going to cover because I don't have all day, and I'm sure that there are also things I'm going to share that I think are awesome that some of you are going to go, oh my goodness, I hate that part about Northwest Arkansas, and that's okay because we just all have our opinions, and that's great. So the top 4 things, I'm going to share the top 4 things that I think make Northwest Arkansas an amazing place to live, and then like I said, I'm going to share the top 4 things that have been the biggest adjustment. I know I'm talking kind of fast, but I want to make this like worthwhile, and this is also not like my job. I just make videos for fun. So hopefully this is helpful. Okay, number 1 thing that I think makes Northwest Arkansas incredible, and as a disclaimer, when I say like Northwest Arkansas, if you aren't familiar with what that means, if you type in like Northwest Arkansas on Google or something, it will show you. It's basically, like up to the border of Missouri, and then down like to Fayetteville. So it's not a massive area, although there's a lot here. So that's what I mean when I'm saying Northwest Arkansas. I don't consider like Fort Smith to be Northwest Arkansas. I don't know if that's like, I think that's more central. Anyways, that's what Northwest Arkansas is as far as I'm concerned. So the number 1 thing that makes it great is the trails and the nature and the weather. And I know there are lots of people that complain about the weather here, and I actually love it. So we've been here now for 9 months. We haven't gone through an entire winter yet, but it's actually been really, really cold this fall. We've had many days that we wake up and it's in like, it's a real feel of like 6 degrees. So we've been here 9 months, and I've loved the change of the seasons. Oh my goodness. So being born and raised in California, in the Valley, we did not really get seasons. I mean, you'd occasionally have some falls where you'd get some more colors, and it just was not like beautiful by any stretch of the imagination, in my opinion. And if you've watched a lot of my older videos, you know that like I don't like hate California. There's lots of things I loved about it, but there were just lots of things that we really wanted to have in a place that we lived that weren't there. So the nature, the weather, the trails here are incredible. So there's stuff everywhere. I mean, like so many trails. It's insane. And they're all free. I've not found one yet where you have to pay for parking. That was something that we definitely had in California, was that you paid for parking, or you needed a pass everywhere you went to like go to a lot of parks, to go to any of the trail systems, to use a lot of the lakes, like anything, just to go there and walk around, you need to pay for parking like $10. And I've not found that here at all. Like everything's free, everything's super maintained. There's like dirt trails, there's bike trails, there's places you can run, there's places you can hike, you can go fishing, you can swim, you can go kayaking. There's really everything as far as nature and outdoors are concerned, and I think it's amazing. The other thing that's really awesome about it is just the proximity of everything. So like where I'm at, I can go 15 minutes in multiple directions and be out in the middle of nowhere. I can drive 10 minutes from where I'm at and be in incredible nature trails that go all around Crystal Bridges. And I think that's awesome. I think it's really, really awesome. And one of the things that makes this area so incredible. We don't have any mountains. I know some people will say that Mount Magazine is a mountain, which if you come from somewhere where it's super, super flat, I mean, it is a mountain. It's called a mountain. It's a mountain, but it's not a mountain range. Like for me, I grew up going to the Sierras a lot, which is a mountain range. And so I definitely miss the mountains, but we still get so much incredible nature here in all the seasons. And I just love that. So that was the first thing. The second thing that I think makes Northwest Arkansas amazing is the amenities. So for me, just so you kind of understand where I'm coming from, I am not a huge shopper. I'm not, I don't want to call it high maintenance, but I'm not like particular when it comes to clothing brands or designers. Like I'm totally happy if I have a Target and stuff I can buy online, or, you know, maybe a couple shops that I can go to for specialty items. So coming here, I was blown away by the amenities we had for shopping, because there's a lot. We have a mall in Fayetteville, and there's also the Promenade in Rogers, which is really, really cute. There's a lot of really cute shops. I mean, we've got a lot of options there. There's a Dillard's, there's like, you know, Soma there. I mean, there's like a ton of different things that you can shop at. And in my opinion, it's a lot of options, especially considering how big Northwest Arkansas is. There's a ton of options for shopping, and I know there's people that disagree with me, but that's just my personal opinion. We also have a lot of different food. You know, Arkansas is not a place I would have considered to be very diverse, and moving here I was really surprised by how diverse it is. And I think that's really due to the fact that Walmart brings so many people in here from all over the nation, and really from all over the world, so you get a lot of variety. There's people here from everywhere, especially in Bentonville, Arkansas. You get people from literally everywhere. I mean, I don't know the exact statistic, but I would venture to say that like 70% of the people that live in Bentonville have come from somewhere else, like not even in Arkansas. And I think that's kind of cool, because it gives you like a cool dynamic, and people here are really open to like making friends and meeting new people, because it is such a like area of transplants. And I think that's really, really fun. There's a ton of things to do. We don't have like a big airport here, which is probably one of my biggest pet peeves. We do have an airport, but if you want to fly Southwest, you have to drive to Tulsa. So if you're watching this Southwest, please start flying to XNA. But the area is just not massive, so I understand why the airport isn't huge. But we have, you know, like the AMP, where there's tons of awesome concerts. We have Crystal Bridges Museum, and it's beautiful. We have the Amazeum, which is a great place to go to. There's the square in Bentonville. There's a square in Fayetteville. You have stuff in Rogers, and I mean, all over. There's stuff to do everywhere. There's a lot of really awesome places to go swimming. This last summer we were here, and this was really unexpected coming from California. We actually swam more, and we spent more time outside than we ever did in California in the summer. I think part of that is because we weren't dying from the heat. I know a lot of people don't like the humidity and they complain about it, but I honestly would rather have it be 93 and humid than 116 and I get in my car and I feel like I'm literally gonna die, because it's just not fun. So I don't miss that heat really at all. So I think it's kind of just a trade-off. I know I'm kind of talking about weather a little bit, but I kind of forgot to talk about that earlier. So the one thing I'll say moving here, and it's just something about the area, it's not necessarily specific to Northwest Arkansas, is coming from a place that's a really dry heat, you do get a lot cooler temperatures in the evening in the summers. You don't get that here. Like, it's just, it feels like it's hot day and night, but it doesn't get as hot. So it's kind of a trade-off. And then it's been really, really cold lately. Actually today it's not really cold. You can probably see it's pretty sunny, but we've been able to wear like our jackets and our boots and our scarves, and that was something I always wanted to do in California, and we were never able to because it just did not get cold enough. So that's been really fun. Okay, so back to amenities. There's places to swim. There's places, like I already said, like all the outdoor things. There's a ton of different movie theaters. There's lots of stuff going on all the time in the community. And again, I know there are people that are like, oh my gosh, but we don't have an amusement park. We don't have like a huge water park, although we do have some that are pretty fun. Some community pools that are stinking awesome, in my opinion, that have huge water slides and everything. We don't have like a massive zoo. Like, so some people, you know, if you're looking for that, it's not a huge city. You're not looking, it's not Dallas, it's not Sacramento, it's not Los Angeles, but for the size of this area, there are so many things to do. So I love that. The amenities, I think, is one of the things that makes it awesome. And with that comes like really awesome art, lots of variety in food. The only food here that I will say I don't feel like I have a ton of access to would be Chinese food and Mexican food. It's definitely here, but coming from California, being one of, I mean, I think it's probably the most diverse place in the US, or one of the most diverse places. We had access to anything and everything and lots of options. There's not as much here, but it's still here, and I love that. We have Indian food, there's Thai food. I mean, there's lots of options, so that's really great. The third thing that I think makes Northwest Arkansas amazing is the cost of living. And this, again, I think is so relative. It depends on where you've come from. So I talk to people that live in other parts of Arkansas or the Midwest or whatever, and they'll say things like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe you live like in Bentonville, it's so expensive. And in my mind, I'm going, what? Because I come from California, where I lived you know, my very first apartment that we ever had, and this was 11 years ago, was $1,000 a month for an itty bitty, like 650 square foot apartment on the top floor, and it was like 20 years old. So that was 10, 11 years ago. It's even more now. So like the place I'm living in right now is the cheapest place I've ever lived in my whole life. It is brand new. And it has the nicest, I mean, it's all granite, like stainless steel appliances. It's a really cute townhome, and I love it. And I just, to me, it's insane that it's the cheapest place I've ever lived. So I would say cost of living is a huge plus of Northwest Arkansas because of, again, the amenities that you get. And then the trails and the nature and all of that. It's almost unbelievable to me sometimes how affordable it is to live here. And not just in housing. I mean, gas right now, all week it's been $2.04. And I know that there are other places in Arkansas it's even cheaper. So like Northwest Arkansas is kind of like, it's definitely the most affluent area because you have all these big companies here that bring a lot of business to the area and bring a lot of people here. So I think it is a little bit more than the rest of Arkansas, but you know, my family back in California is paying like $4 for gas, and it's supposed to be like over $5 by this next spring. So insane, the cost of living. And I think for what you get, it's awesome. It's really awesome. And then the fourth thing, the final thing, it's so hard for me to limit it just to 4, which is kind of why I've been all over the place, that I think makes Northwest Arkansas amazing is the community. So I kind of touched on this earlier, but because it's such a like transplant area, like there's so many people here that create their own community and families, and there's so many awesome organizations. You know, I've been able to get involved with several, and I think it's amazing what they do for Northwest Arkansas, for our country and our world as a whole. So there's a lot of really awesome nonprofits. There's ways that you can volunteer, and then the community is just great because it's just, I don't know, like no place is safe, no place is perfect, but the crime here is like virtually like nothing compared to where I was in a big city in California. And I know a lot of that is because it's fewer people, but I think it's just the area. Like it's just a completely different vibe than a huge city. I mean, is there crime? Yes. Does bad stuff happen here? Yes, because there's crazy people everywhere. But it's just so different. I mean, there are a lot of people that live here that still leave like their houses and their cars unlocked. I don't know that I'll ever be able to do that because being born and raised in some rough parts of California at times, I'm like, I just don't know if it's in me to do that. But I just think it's really cool that you have like a more trusting community. People are a little bit more connected because the pace is a lot slower. And that kind of leads me into the 4 things that are the biggest adjustments for us since moving here. So the 4 things that have been, I don't want to say difficult, but just were an adjustment for us, and we didn't necessarily anticipate it to be an adjustment. So the number one thing is the pace. So the pace is very different here. And it is a very business area, especially depending on which part of Northwest Arkansas you're in. And I by no means consider myself to be the expert, but since moving here, I've just immersed myself in this area and tried to meet as many people as possible and travel around Northwest Arkansas a ton and talk to as many people. So I feel like I've gotten a decent vibe of the different areas, and the pace is just so much slower, at least for us coming from California. I think a huge reason for that is, again, the cost of living, because if you think about it, you know, in California, if you work a minimum wage job, you really can't even hope to live in the ghetto on your income. Like, it's just not an option unless you have multiple roommates. And here, there really isn't a ghetto. Like, there are some areas I definitely wouldn't live in. Like, I'm not going to say you're going to get shot if you walk outside your house, but like more rundown, like just areas I wouldn't necessarily want to live in. But for the most part, like there's all of Northwest Arkansas is amazing, and you can work a minimum wage job here, which is not that much less than California, and you can actually afford to live in a place. Like, I'm not saying you're going to have this lavish lifestyle, but the options just are wide open when you can actually live on your salary. I mean, it just changes things. So I think that that's why the pace is a lot slower. Like, you have people, you know, that just work one job. Like, it's not very common to have people that, as far as what I've met, to have people working multiple jobs. And that was very much a normal thing in a really expensive city, was to have like multiple incomes in the family. A lot of times you might have roommates, or you have someone that has a really high paying job, but they're traveling a ton, like to the Bay Area and back. Or you just have to live like way smaller and maybe not in the greatest area in order to kind of live where you want to live. So that's been a huge adjustment, is the pace, and then also like the size of the area. It's so funny to me that I drive across town and it takes me like 8 minutes. There are lots of people that you will hear complaining about the traffic in Northwest Arkansas, and this is my opinion on it. Okay, like, are there lots of people here? Yes. Does it get a little bit backed up on certain roads at certain times of the day? Yes. But when you look at it from the perspective of people living in big cities, so like for me living in Sacramento, California, I would drive 12 miles sometimes and it would take me an hour and a half during rush hour. Like I would drive, you know, a route that if there was no traffic and it was in the middle of the night, it would take me, you know, 20 minutes. And then during traffic or busy times of the day, which was really like morning rush hour, lunchtime, and then evening rush hour, it would take me over an hour and a half. So it's not even on that scale. I mean, driving across town, you know, it might take me 8 minutes normally, and during rush hour, it might take me 15. I've heard of people getting stuck for longer. My husband commutes from one end of Northwest Arkansas to the other every single day, and he is yet to be delayed in traffic more than like 3 minutes. And he does that every single day back and forth. So again, some areas do get a little bit more congested, especially I think where there's a lot of growth or where a lot of the bigger companies are, because at certain times of the day, like the roads just aren't big enough to accommodate thousands of people going one place all at the same time. But for me, I kind of laugh inside a little bit. I try not to sound like a butthead, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like how about you go drive around in LA or Sacramento or Dallas or New York for a day and come back and tell me we have bad traffic. It's just, again, it's all relative. If you grew up in the country, like, and you move here, it's gonna feel like traffic for sure. But in the real, like, big picture, to me, it's a non-issue. The second thing that was a big adjustment for us is the bugs in the summer, okay? I don't want to scare you or deter you, but here's the thing. In California, it's very, very dry all the time. It's a big problem. That's just, I mean, it's very, very dry, which means there are not as many bugs. Like certain areas you live, especially because there's a lot of agriculture, in California, in certain parts, you might get a lot of flies. This is not flies. I mean, there are a lot of flies here, but in the summer, I remember it was probably like May or April when the cicada bugs started coming out, and I mean, could not believe how loud they were and how many there were, and they were like everywhere. So these are like big. They're not like, I don't know. If you're not a bug person, you're probably freaking out right now. I don't really love bugs, but I just don't really care because I'm like, I mean, whatever. God made them, they're outside doing their thing, whatever. But there's so many of them, so many, and they're so loud. Oh my goodness. So definitely lots of bugs in the summer, but it's because it's wet here. I mean, it rained off and on all summer long, which was a huge adjustment for us. I used to think I knew what thunderstorms were. Yeah, no. Like coming out here, I'm like, now I know why all my Midwest and Southern friends laugh at me when I say I've been in a thunderstorm, because I didn't know what it meant. I did not at all. You guys, out here, there's actual thunder and lightning and summer storms like you wouldn't believe. But all of that leads to it being really, really green, which was a huge adjustment. You know, driving around, it's green like all summer. And it was the weirdest thing because, again, coming from California where it's very, very dry, things have been green here until a couple weeks ago when it got really, really cold, and then things have started to die. There's still plenty of green, but it's just insane. Huge adjustment. Huge adjustment with summer bugs, it being green, raining in the summer, and then like in the winter is when it's more dry, which is the opposite of what it was for us in California. So that's been a big adjustment. And when it does rain here, it like rains. So Northwest Arkansas, this is an interesting statistic. You can look this up online if you don't believe me. It gets more rain here than it does in Seattle, Washington, which is crazy. But it rains about half as many days as it does in Seattle. So like Seattle is like the wettest place in the world, meaning they get like the most rainy days, or the US, I'm not sure, but it's a very, very wet place, and a lot of people think of it as like a place that rains all the time, and it's true because it does rain many days. Here it rains like half of the days it rains in Seattle, but in that time it rains more inches than it does in Seattle, which means like you don't have rain every single day here, but when it rains, it like is a monsoon. Like I've never seen rain like it in my life. So that's just kind of something that's been an adjustment, but it's been fun. The weather here changes often, which has also been an adjustment. So like yesterday, I don't think it got over 30 degrees. Today, it's supposed to be like 45. 2 days ago, it was 70 and we were in shorts. So it really just depends. I know it drives some people crazy. I personally love it because it's variety, and that might just be because I grew up in a place where like you'd have 7-8 months of you were wearing shorts and a t-shirt and it never changed, and there was no rain, and it was just consistent weather all the time. And then you'd have months where it was cold and rainy for, you know, months at a time. So I personally enjoy the variety. I understand if it's not your thing, but that's been an adjustment for sure. The next thing that has been a huge adjustment is the cost of living, which I know I talked about as being one of the greatest perks, but it's been a huge adjustment for us. The first couple of months we were here, we would go to like a trail, and it was so human nature for me to look for the place I needed to pay for parking, or, you know, go out someplace and budget a certain amount of money for something and it's significantly less than that. So that's been a major adjustment. There's a lot of really cool free things to do here that are just part of the community, Crystal Bridges Museum being one of them. I mean, I'm not a huge art person, but the architecture there is unbelievable, like unbelievable. The staff are super friendly. The trails that surround it are out of this world. Like, I absolutely love it, and it's free, and it blows my mind every time I go. So that's been a huge adjustment. We've had a little bit of an adjustment with the convenience of things, mostly related to the airport. So again, like I said, I'm not a huge shopping person, so that hasn't really affected me at all. I've just been pleasantly surprised by what we have. And then the airport is definitely adjustment because living in Sacramento, I was like, you know, an hour or less, depending on where I was living and depending on if there was traffic or not. But I was within, you know, easy driving distance to a huge airport. And here, our airport, the first time I drove up, I thought it looked like a pretzel stand. Like, it's not by any means the smallest airport I've ever seen. Like, they don't like wheel the stairs up to the plane to let you get out, but it's tiny. And we only have a couple airlines there. And usually when you fly most places, unless it's like Dallas, you're going to have multiple layovers. So that's been an adjustment for sure. Flying out of there, or if we choose to drive to Tulsa and fly from there, it's a little bit different because it's not huge. You do have access to Kansas City, which is like 3.5 hours away, which is a huge airport. But it's just a little bit of a convenience thing when it comes to that. That's been an adjustment. And then the last thing that's been an adjustment, which also kind of tied into the community piece, which I think makes Northwest Arkansas great, is that there's people from everywhere. So if you really are looking for a place to move that's like got people that have lived there, you know, for 60 years, and there's 3 generations of them, and they're planning on staying there forever, are there those people here? Yes, absolutely. But it's not a community of like, we're all here and we're never leaving and we've been here forever. You know, it's had a lot of growth in this community in the last 50 years especially, but I mean the last like 10 years has been hugely explosive because of how like Walmart's restructured some things and other big companies that are here. So you have like a more diverse community, but also, I don't want to call it transient, but you do have people that will move a lot. So you have people that move in, maybe they're working for Walmart or Sam's or whatever, and they work there for a couple years and then they go somewhere else, so they move. So you do have people that will move here and then leave. So it's definitely not like a, you know, people stay in the neighborhood for 55 years and everyone's the original owner at the home and whatever, which I don't think is bad. I personally love being able to meet so many people from all over, but it was an adjustment, a for sure adjustment, coming from a place where most of the people I was around were from the town, and here it's like they're from everywhere. So that is my not so short video for you all on what I think makes Northwest Arkansas amazing. I did get a couple of questions. Actually, I've gotten lots of questions from y'all on my Instagram and through here as far as different things. I'm going to try to touch on a couple of those really quick. I know this is getting kind of long, but it's been like 4 months in the making. So one of the questions I got was about tornadoes, and I actually get this question a lot. I've not lived here for years and years and years, and I will say that there's no like normal. Like if I ask 10 people that all live here in the same city, I could ask 10 people that live on the same street what a normal summer is or what a normal fall is, and they would all have a completely different answer. Like, legitimately, it's the truth. So I don't really know. I just know from living here and then from what we researched before we moved, but tornadoes aren't a huge problem here. I think it's because we are a little bit in the hills. You know, we're really close to like the Ozarks. It's not flat land, so I think there have been a couple tornadoes that have touched down here somewhere at some point, but I think it's been years. I've not personally met anyone that's ever even witnessed a tornado in Northwest Arkansas. If you go a couple hours west to Oklahoma or like northwest to Kansas, they're everywhere. But not a huge problem here from what I've heard or seen. I'm not the expert. I'm not a meteorologist or like a storm chaser, but that's been what my experience has been. I've gotten a lot of questions or comments rather about how Northwest Arkansas is so different from the rest of Arkansas, and I've not traveled extensively in the rest of Arkansas, but every single person I've ever talked to tells me the same thing. So that is one thing that everyone is really consistent with, which is Northwest Arkansas is not like the rest of Arkansas. And I have to agree from what I've seen and where I've traveled. I kind of feel like Northwest Arkansas is it's just its own place. We're kind of in a bubble. We are like 3.5 hours south from Kansas City. We're about 5 hours northeast from Dallas. We're 2 hours east of Tulsa, and we're like 3.5 hours from Little Rock. So it's really like its own area. If not for like Walmart and Tyson and JB Hunt and the university being here, like there would be nothing here more than likely. I mean, maybe not nothing, but it really is what it is because of the business that's come here for those companies and the university and the stuff that's here, which I think is fabulous. But it really is it's like a really big small town, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my thought process on, is Northwest Arkansas like the rest of Arkansas? So that is my update. I hope it's helpful. As always, if you have questions, please just post them below. I've met so many people that are moving out here that have questions about moving out here, people that we know and love from California that want to know more about this area. So please just drop your questions in the comments below, and I'm going to try to do a video like every month or so just with information about this area and answering all your questions. So I love you all a ton. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.